They say blood is thicker than water. That family always comes first. That loyalty to your roots matters more than anything else. But no one tells you what happens when choosing your family costs you the only person who truly chose you. This is the story of a man who believed he was doing the right thing, until silence became louder than arguments, and regret became heavier than pride. David Owen grew up believing one thing above all else: family is everything. Not love, not happiness, not even peace. Family. It was drilled into him from childhood, not gently, but firmly, like rules written in stone. His father, a stern man with tired eyes and calloused hands, used to say, "A man without family is nothing." His mother echoed it differently, softer but sharper: "We sacrifice for family." That's how God measures a good son. David learned early that obedience earned approval, and approval felt like love. So he obeyed. He studied what they approved of, worked where they suggested, sent money home even when it meant skipping meals. By the time he met Maya, David was already exhausted, though he didn't yet know why. Maya was different. She didn't demand. She didn't command. She noticed. She noticed how David apologized too often, how he stiffened when his phone rang late at night, how he smiled politely even when he was clearly overwhelmed. On the third date, she said something that caught him off guard. "You don't talk about what you want." David laughed it off. "I want what's best." Maya looked at him quietly. That's not an answer. No one had ever asked him that before. They married 2 years later, not lavishly, but lovingly. At least that's how Maya saw it. Marriage didn't change David's family's expectations. If anything, it increased them. Calls came daily. Requests followed each call, sometimes spoken, sometimes implied. School fees for a cousin. Hospital bills for an uncle. Rent for his younger brother. Maya tried to be understanding. At first, she'd say things like, "We'll manage. It's okay, they're your family." But behind her smile, worry grew. Bills piled up. Plans were postponed. Conversations became shorter. One night, Maya asked carefully, "David, can we talk about boundaries?" The word boundaries sounded like rebellion to him. "They're my family," he replied. "I can't just turn my back on them." Maya nodded, but something in her eyes dimmed. The real conflict came quietly. David's mother called one evening. She needed money urgently. Maya had already planned to use their savings for a medical procedure she'd been postponing. David didn't ask Maya. He didn't hesitate. He sent the money. When Maya found out, she didn't shout. She just sat down. "You didn't even talk to me." David felt defensive immediately. What was I supposed to do? Let my mother suffer? Maya whispered, "What about me?" That question stayed with him long after she went to bed. But pride answered it before honesty could. Arguments became routine. David felt torn constantly. Every time Maya asked for more attention, more protection, more partnership, it felt like betrayal to his family. Every time his family demanded more sacrifice, Maya felt pushed further away. Inside David's mind, a war raged. If I choose Maya, I disappoint my family. If I choose my family, Maya will understand, right? He convinced himself she would. After all, she married him knowing his background. That was his excuse. The breaking point came when David's younger brother lost his job. Their parents insisted David take responsibility. They wanted him to move his brother into their apartment, indefinitely. Maya said no, for the first time, clearly and firmly. "David, I can't live like this. I need our home to feel safe. I need to be your wife, not an afterthought." David felt trapped. His mother cried on the phone. His father spoke of shame. His siblings accused him of forgetting where he came from. And Maya, she waited. In the end, David chose familiarity over intimacy. "My brother is coming," he told her. Maya looked at him for a long time. Then she said quietly, "Okay." That scared him more than anger ever could. Maya changed after that. She still cooked, still smiled politely, still spoke kindly, but something vital was gone. No more late-night talks. No more shared dreams. No more laughter that filled the room. David told himself it would pass. It didn't. Weeks turned into months. One night, David came home to find the apartment unusually quiet. Maya's things were gone. A note sat on the table. The note was short. No accusations. No drama. Just truth. "David, I loved you enough to wait. I loved you enough to hope. But I won't love you enough to disappear. I needed a husband. You chose to be a son instead. I wish you peace, Maya." David sat on the floor for hours. The apartment echoed with absence. And for the first time in his life, no one was asking him for anything. David thought his family would fill the emptiness. They didn't. The brother moved out eventually. The calls reduced. The demands shifted to someone else. Life moved on. Except David's didn't. He replayed conversations in his head. Maya's tired eyes. Her soft voice asking for space. The way she waited patiently for him to choose her. And how he never did. After Maya left, David didn't move. Not immediately. He slept on the same bed, on the same side, staring at the ceiling where her laughter used to bounce softly during late-night conversations. The apartment still smelled like her shampoo for weeks. At first, that comforted him. Then it became torture. Every object reminded him of a moment he had dismissed as unimportant. The mug she liked, the curtain she insisted on buying even though he thought it was unnecessary. The small plant she watered every morning, whispering to it like it was alive. David finally understood something painful. She wasn't decorating a house. She was building a life. And he had treated it like a temporary arrangement. David expected his family to notice his silence. They didn't. Calls still came, but fewer. Messages still arrived, but colder. When he hinted that Maya had left, his mother sighed. "Marriage is not easy," she said. "You must be strong. No questions, no concern, just endurance." His brother joked one evening, "At least now you have more money." David forced a laugh, then hung up and stared at his phone. That was when the truth hit him like a slow wave. I sacrificed my marriage for people who never planned to sacrifice for me. At night, regret crept in quietly. It didn't shout. It whispered. It whispered in Maya's voice. "Can we talk? I just need you on my side. I don't feel like your wife anymore." David replayed those moments endlessly, analyzing every response he gave. Every time he chose peace with his family over peace with his wife. Every time he thought love would wait. He didn't realize love doesn't wait forever. 6 months after Maya left, David finally gathered the courage to reach out. Finally, he sent a simple message. "I'm sorry. I should have listened." Her reply came hours later. "I waited for you to realize that. I just couldn't wait forever." David stared at the screen, chest tight. That was the moment he understood. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Life has a cruel way of teaching lessons through contrast. David began seeing Maya's life through mutual friends. She had gone back to school, started therapy, traveled. She laughed more now. Not the cautious laugh she used to have, but a free one. One friend mentioned casually, she said leaving was the hardest thing she's ever done, but also the best. David nodded politely. Inside, something broke quietly. The turning point came during a family gathering. A familiar request surfaced, financial help, again. For the first time, David said no. Silence followed. His mother frowned. His father stared. His siblings exchanged looks. "You've changed," his mother said sharply. David swallowed hard. "No," he replied. "I finally see clearly." No one clapped. No one understood. But for the first time in his life, David chose honesty over approval. And it cost him, but it also freed him. Therapy wasn't easy. The counselor asked questions no one had ever asked him before. Who taught you that love must be earned through sacrifice? Why do you believe your needs matter less? What were you afraid would happen if you chose your wife? David didn't have answers immediately. But one truth surfaced again and again. He had been afraid of disappointing everyone and ended up disappointing himself most of all. David wrote a letter to Maya. He never sent it. In it, he admitted everything he hadn't been brave enough to say before. That he hid behind duty because vulnerability scared him. That he mistook obedience for character. That he thought love was patient enough to survive neglect. He folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Some apologies aren't meant to be delivered. They're meant to change you. Years passed. David never remarried quickly. This time, he healed. He learned to say no. To speak early instead of too late. To protect the people who chose him, not just the ones who demanded him. When he finally fell in love again, it was different. He set boundaries from the beginning. Not because he didn't love his family, but because he finally understood what love actually required. One quiet evening, David sat alone, watching the city lights flicker. He thought about Maya, not with pain anymore, but gratitude. She was the lesson he needed, even though he learned it the hardest way possible. He whispered to himself, some people come into your life not to stay, but to teach you how to become better. He chose his family over his wife. And by the time he understood the cost, she had already chosen herself. Sometimes, regret isn't punishment. It's education. And the saddest truth of all is this. The people who love you the most are not the ones who demand everything from you. They're the ones who ask to be chosen, just once. If this story touched you, pause and reflect. Who are you choosing today? Because love doesn't leave suddenly, it leaves quietly, after waiting far too long. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the right choice isn't the loudest one, it's the one that chooses love before regret does.